Hello, and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. On this episode, I'm going to discuss the BDSM dating process and vetting. What is vetting exactly? Well, you meet someone that makes you go all aflutter. You stop and think to yourself, hey, this could be the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Obviously, you need to know if you're a good fit, a great match for one another, and you both want to get to know each other beyond the superficial level. That means really understanding who they are, what they stand for, if your morals align with yours, your goals, your outlooks, your wants on life. When you go through the process of vetting someone, it is meticulously making sure they're the right person for you. We can gain some of this information through informal or formal questioning, looking through their social media, if they have any, that is, asking about what they do for work, or go as far as getting a criminal and financial background checks done. But sometimes we're often blinded by their outward appearance. We can think about and write out lists of everything we want in someone, and with nearly 8 billion people on the planet, there might be someone that fits the bill. In reality, though, that part of you that chooses the person you are drooling over is not the rational part that's crafted and planned out what they are wanting in a partner. I think many of us have been in this position before, whether you were either blinded by the bulging muscles or caught in her mysterious eyes. While we are in that frame of mind, we tend to dismiss whether or not that potential person will be a good long-term match for us. While we are caught up in the flurry of feelings that are enhanced by our neurochemicals of dopamine and noradrenaline, that seemingly help steer the very early stages of the relationship that we're entering. These chemicals are in overdrive, especially at the beginning of a relationship. The problem is that rational part of our brain is not getting its say at all. We need to consider that dating can be vetting someone along the way. That does not mean we have to complicate the process. Getting to know someone or being involved with someone is difficult enough, let alone adding pressure to the process. Vetting someone requires a deep dive into the values and goals we both share beyond that superficial level, especially those levels that we get typically caught up in. So, what do you really want out of a relationship? We often ruminate about the person we want in our lives and will fill that void in our hearts. When it comes to BDSM, we are going to be placing or giving a lot of trust to someone that we don't know very well in the beginning. And many people often are willing to jump right in without considering the long-term ramifications. When I read or have these stories conveyed to me by clients, we have to dissect how much time we're spending getting to know someone and their backgrounds before we jump straight in. One thing we often neglect to ask ourselves before we jump into something new is, what type of person do we want to attract, and what type of relationship do we want with them? Because there are so many facets that people can be attracted by in the BDSM community. How do we move past those initial steps to see the long term and what that may look like? One way is spending a lot more time talking and communicating with someone on a deeper level before you decide to begin play. Often, many people seem to be talking for a short period of time. They have a brief conversation, a couple of emails, maybe a phone call or a text or two. Next thing you know, they're getting together for a play session. More often than not, these early building relationships don't last very long. To find the right person for us, you have to be willing to slow it down, to make the time more fulfilling, to get to know one another, not to rush things. Unless you're just looking for that short-term solution, those one-night stands or those one-off plays. When we take the rational steps to vet a potential partner, we set ourselves up for a successful pairing with aligned goals. We have to focus on the now versus what you believe or hope will happen, or what you might feel will happen. This is encountered when we come across profiles on social media and think because there's similar fetishes or groups that these people belong to, that they have goals, thoughts, feelings, fetishes, or people they associate that are similar to ours. We might have a connection already. But we have to consider some serious questions before we get involved. While we are thinking about a potential future partner, we need to reflect on some things before we get involved with someone. Are roles important to them? Do they need to be a top? Do they need to identify as a dominant, Are they submissive? Do they identify as a slave? Does this person switch? Are they poly? If so, how is that going to affect them with me if I'm not those things? How active are they in their local community, if they're active at all? If they're a private person, how does that make me feel? Do we want the same things? Do we have similar values? Are they considerate and compassionate? And while that question may seem odd when we consider a BDSM context, and when we talk about things especially that involve, some things can be considered violent while we consider them playful, we have to understand if these people outside of this realm but inside of our relationship are going to have these responses to situations that may occur to us. How do they deal with upsetting situations? How do they manage personal frustration? Do they get mad quickly? Do they just respond without thinking? What's their personal relationship history? How many submissives or dominants have they gone through before they've met me? What about if they're new? How is that going to affect if I want to be with someone that has less experience than myself? What are their expectations of a relationship, and what goals and ideals do they want or seek inside of a relationship? A lot of these can be seemingly innocent questions, and some are more complex. Reflecting on these types of questions before we get involved with someone helps us find the person we want that align with the goals and expectations we have for a better relationship. This is something that I often encounter people doing. They put very little effort into, but they expect a huge return on. If we don't know what we want out of a mate, how will we know if that person is right or wrong for us? All we are doing is setting ourselves up for a revolving door of missed opportunities or relationships that we shouldn't be getting involved with just because we potentially are lonely. Consider not playing the first time you meet someone. And while we're on that topic, make the first meeting public. That way you both can feel relaxed in a neutral environment and location. You don't want to ignore warning signs either. But here's a big one. Don't go into a meeting looking for red flags. Sometimes we can manifest things that aren't there just because we're hoping or looking for them. Finding a dominant or a submissive, or someone in between, can be a very daunting and definitely a drawn-out task. But if you believe the right person is worth it, and they feel the same way, then put that time in. We have to keep in mind that relationships, they're not a sprint, they're a marathon. Let alone, there's no race for you to get involved with someone. So slow down, take your time, learn as much as you can and move at the pace you're both comfortable with. If you leap without looking, you may find yourself in more pitfalls than rose gardens. There's no need to rush the process if you're both worth it, because the most compatible and best informed relationships are built slowly, over a solid foundation with someone you can trust, with a lot of communication, effort, and respect, especially when that's going both ways. If not, you may want to consider if that person's the right fit for you. Until next time, be safe and stay kinky.